What's up, y'all? It's Thien back with another video today. Today's video is going to be about the actual resume itself, especially when it comes to software engineering. I want to talk about in this video the purpose of the profile, LinkedIn profile, resume, CV, whatever you want to call it, how to write one, and some tips and tricks and hacks. Purpose of the resume. It's kind of evolved over time. It's essentially used just to get your foot in the door, but in today's modern digital world, we need to realize that it's more than just getting the foot in the door. Is to get yourself in front of a real person, aka an interview, because there's so many job portals that just say no to your resume, and your resume doesn't even reach a person before it gets the rejection. So that's to keep in mind throughout this video. So long are the days where we can just pull up to the office and just drop a resume off and know for sure that the first person that looks at the resume is an actual person. So we need to keep this in mind. The purpose of the resume is to get in front of a real person and to get past the job portal. Now, how to write your resume. I'm going to place a disclaimer right here that I do not preach lying. There should be no lying. But we will be talking about some gray area hacks throughout the video that might not make you comfortable in doing so. So take with whatever I'm giving you as you may. All right? So, how to write your resume. I like to kind of keep a framework when it comes to the resume. I keep it fairly simple and it's not short by any means. It's your contact info, your skills, your experience, your education, and your hobbies. You have a small portion for your contact info, your name, your email, your phone number, your GitHub, your LinkedIn profile. Those are the only things you really need for your contact info. And then immediately after that is your skills, right? Just start off listing by like proficiency. For me it was React, JavaScript. Like I list those, right? Like JavaScript, comma, React, comma, Redux, comma, hooks, comma, web development, comma, just all these buzzwords, because you got to remember these resumes are going through job portals that are going to scan your resume and parse your resume for keywords, whether you like it or not. That's happening. And I will not preach for those, hacks about like, oh, write your skill in white font, or like write like AI in white font or crypto in white fonts just so you can get past the portal. I'm not preaching for lying. I'm preaching for like include skills. Now the gray area does come into this where you include skills that you might not have much knowledge on. Like for example, I included Python because I was willing to work in a job that did Python, because I was also willing to learn it, and I understand that like I can learn it. I think that's one thing. If you feel that you can do it, then include it, right? Not necessarily that you've done it or that you know it. If you feel that you can do it and you're confident in yourself that you can do it, include it. That's what I would say about that portion. The experience portion, this should be divvied up in chronological order of your actual experience. And for those of you out there that are like new grads or that lack a lot of extensive experience, keep a huge portion of it be open source. And I would even argue to say that your open source experience should even be above your actual work experience, since you lack the extensive work experience. And to get open source experience, just contribute towards open source projects. You can easily contribute towards React, but keep in mind that some open source projects are very solidified. Just find ones out there and then utilize those for your resume building, so that you can build bullet points around the technologies that are used in said open source projects and include that in your resume to say that you have that skill set. And then the experience portion, I'm going to go into this a little bit lightly here. I don't want to go into too much detail, but essentially what you want to do, especially when we're aiming for these more technical, more senior level interviews, we need our resumes to be as verbose as possible. And what I mean by this is you want to see as little white space as possible, whether that's the margins or just the white space in between the end of the sentence and the rest of the paper. Like, you want it to be as verbose as possible. The reason before this is because most people, when they look at your dense ass resume, and there's so many words on the page, and keep in mind you also should be keeping it to one page only. People don't have time flipping through pages, especially when they're in an interview and the resume is in front of them, and then you're in front of them. They want to talk to you. They just want to use the resume as a reference. They're not the job portal, right? So when they're looking at dense resumes, they tend to immediately resort to an F-shaped reading style, which is you read in a shape of a capital F. You read most of the first 2 lines or whatever, and then you read a little bit, and then you kind of just like skim down the rest. And then at the very bottom, you read the hobbies portion, and that's a fun one that I'm gonna talk more about in the hacks portion of this video. But yeah, keep in mind they're reading an F-shaped portion, so every bullet point should start with a verb and then the technology or the skill set that you want to talk about. And you should be including technical skill sets that are aligned to the technical skill sets that you included in your skill sets portion of the resume. So for example, if you have React as one of your skills, then a bullet point for one of your projects or your work experience should be like implement, verb, implement, technical skill set, React, implement React, and it should be in the form of a what, why, why. So what, implement React, why, to upgrade the framework of the front-end application, and then another why, to speed up the process of developing or improve the development experience, or to ramp up developers quicker based on skill set, whatever you want to say, right? And that was just off the top of my head right there. And so keep that in mind when you're building out these bullet points. It should be in the format of what, why, with the caveat of the what being a verb and the technical skill set that aligns with the list of skill sets that you included in your skills section of the resume. Now let's get into the fun portion of this video, which is the hacks, the tips, the tricks. I know y'all love the hacks out there. I know I do. And so I want to reiterate on some of the hacks that I talked about previously, which is the verboseness, right? When we're applying to these technical jobs, we need to build out technical resumes. We don't need to think about those resumes that are like pretty. We're not going for like these UI UX or like these creative roles. This is more catered towards technical interviews, more engineering, software engineering interviews, right, and jobs. And so technical interviews should be as dense as possible, right? You should include as much as you can in as little as you can. And so for those of you out there that lack the experience, or are more new grad, or coming fresh out of boot camp or what have you, or more junior, play around with this. Play around with the margin size, play around with the font size, play around with the words. And another thing I want to mention too, and that's a fun hack that I always talk about too, is the dates, right? You want to keep it chronological, but a fun hack that I have is use the years only. Don't include months. For example, when I was fresh out of boot camp, I had technical recruitment as one of my jobs, right? And then I had the years only, and it said 2018 to 2019. But I was working there from July 2018 to February 2019, which was roughly like 8 months. That's less than 2 years, obviously. That's less than a year. But that perception is that I worked there 2 years. And if they ask me, I'll tell them the truth. But like, I didn't lie there. This is one of those gray area things, but it's definitely one of those hacks to keep in mind, And another thing too is if you did one single technical thing, include it, right? Especially when you're lacking experience. Like for me, before, when I had no experience, fresh out of boot camp, I included technical recruitment, even though the job itself was by any means technical at all. Like I was just making dials every day. That has nothing to do with engineering or programming. What I included as my bullet point was I implemented a Python script that automated candidate search by searching for 100 candidates an hour or something like that, right, along those lines. And so I did that, and that wasn't even a part of my job requirements, or like that's something I did for fun to help me automate the candidate search for my job and make my job easier. And that's something I did, so I included that during that time frame. So it looked like I was a technical recruiter that implemented Python scripts for 2 years. But that's like by far the whole truth, but it wasn't a lie at that. You know what I mean? So that's definitely a hack. And again, take it as you will and take it as you may. You don't have to follow these hacks. You don't have to use them, but keep in mind that they're out there to use. And one of my favorite hacks is the hobbies, right? I learned this one from the boot camp, is to include hobbies at the very end. It's because at the end of the day, these jobs, like I said, are jobs, and they're hiring people to work beside them for, on average, 40 hours a week. So at least they want someone that they potentially like. And so in the hobbies portion, best believe this helped me out a lot. Like for example, I included basketball. I knew the company I was applying to, they have a basketball league, so it was helpful for them to know that, hey, potentially this guy can play basketball with us, right? So it's like things like that help you out. Like I think another one I had when I was first applying to jobs was Game of Thrones season 1 through 7. I excluded season 8 because it was a huge thing where no one liked season 8, so it was a huge topic. And when I was interviewing for the job that I ultimately ended up taking for my first, job as a software engineer, we spent like 80% of the interview talking about Game of Thrones because they saw that portion on the hobbies. So keep that in mind. That's like a little hack for y'all out there to get the job at the end of the day. Because again, you want to be personable, you want to be likable, you want to work with people you like too. Again, this is also for you. Just as much as they're interviewing you, you should be interviewing them, right? So in conclusion, resume / LinkedIn profile / CV, what have you, they're only used to get you through the job portals. Remember that. Interviewing is how you get the job offer, right? But in order to get these interviews, you need to get through these portals, y'all. You need to get in front of a real person. And remember, no lying. I'm not preaching any lying. But also, they don't need to know the entire truth. Just anything that's pertinent, right? Let me know if there's any hacks that I missed out there, y'all. And until next time, I hope y'all like this video.